The real-life events that inspired Netflix's Adolescence are increasing at an alarming rate.
All right, we need to talk about Adolescence. The miniseries that is #1 on Netflix right now has the entire internet divided, and it has the Manosphere and Andrew Tate specifically up in arms. If you haven't watched the show already, that's okay, but it is now my #3 you have to watch this, right next to Maid and Promising Young Woman. And based off those first two titles, you know that is a hard list to make for me. There's so many details that I don't see people talking about, and we need to discuss. One of the first things I thought when watching this is that both men and women are going to have two completely different viewing experiences of this show, because this is probably all really normalized to them, and watching this as a woman is absolutely crazy. And given the response online, I wasn't far off. So obviously the series itself is specifically highlighting the crisis of teenage boys falling down the red pill pipeline and the byproducts of that and, violence against women. But it does a really good job of empathizing with all of the characters and highlighting this from every angle. If you don't already know, not really a spoiler alert, the main character, a 13-year-old boy, ends up unaliving one of his classmates who is a woman. That's the part that sadly has a lot of the internet divided right now. But before we get into that, I love the way both the parents talk about how they feel they could have done more and they didn't connect with their child enough, but they specifically choose to really focus on the dad and his perspective and his feeling of guilt around this. He talks about how, back in the day, he used to try harder to connect with his son, but then he started working more and things just fell through the cracks. And then they got him that computer and then he was locked away in his room all the time and they never really saw him. It's interesting that they also raised a daughter who turned out very differently. You'll see throughout the show that the women are held to different standards, right? They're expected to excel, behave a little bit better. And I don't see enough people specifically talking about the school scenes. When they go into the schools are overrun, right? The children are wild and kind of running rampant. They're talking back. They are disrespectful to the teachers. The teachers are kind of just taking it. All of the classrooms just seem to be watching videos, and the lack of connection even between the teachers and the students. When they interview the teachers, they highlighted this. They don't really know much about the individual students, right? Because there's too much going on and there's just too many students to keep track of. And if you'll notice, the theme throughout a lot of this film is all of this is a byproduct of capitalism. But this overall lack of human connection and attention leads to the very obvious deep insecurities that we see throughout the film in this boy. He has zero sense of self, and you see that constantly in the psychologist scenes when he is begging for affirmations. And as always, this is the perfect recipe that led him to the red pill pipeline manosphere to try and find some sense of community and validation. And whilst he openly denies consuming that kind of content because he says the kids at school make fun of kids like that, he continues to use their terminology and show that he adheres to their ideologies, especially when he talks about what he thinks is appropriate for 13-year-olds to be doing with women at that age. They have convinced him that he should be doing a whole lot more. This means he either is consuming that content and he's lying about it in shame, or that content is so ingrained in young people that they don't even realize they're all adhering to it. He also has some very obvious issues with authority and clearly the need to feel like he's in control and he's in power, to the point where the psychologist woman has to trick him into thinking that he's in control to get information out of him. And throughout all of this, as that content trains these men to do, he is convinced that he is the victim, he is innocent, and he goes through insane lengths to continue to self-soothe and justify the behaviors. Which brings us to the horrific response of the red pill men in the show that is being mirrored by those men in real life. Like, this show nailed it. Both the character, the men in the show, and the men reacting in real life are justifying her being unalived because she bullied him. Which, talk about running face first into the point and still not learning the lesson. What he explains to the psychologist in the show is that his friend got a bunch of inappropriate pictures of the young girls that are in their class and spread them around. And they chose to specifically go after and make fun of this one 13-year-old girl's body, and she was really getting it the worst. And even he was agreeing with them, but he decided that since she is vulnerable, right, and probably feels bad enough about herself, he's going to ask her out. Of course, that girl rejects him because of the way she has been treated by all of them. And that's absolutely nowhere near an appropriate time to be asking out a girl. Of course, he responds by continuing to insult her and her appearance. And so she leaves like 2 or maybe 3 comments on his Instagram that are literally just like emojis of the red pill and a few other things. Right? Just directly calling out his misogyny, his hypocrisy, and the way he treats women. And then some of their other classmates liked it. And with that, they decided to justify unaliving that girl. That's what they think a proper reaction to something they put into motion is. And the real spoiler alert is that at the end of the series, he finally changes his verdict to guilty, indicating that perhaps he has reflected a tiny bit, but it is far too late. That girl is no longer alive. All over an Instagram comment. And the saddest part is this is reflecting what's happening in real life. Violence against women, specifically young women, has risen. And we desperately need more media like this calling for some sort of action.